Am I crooked? Crooked, what's happening here? Is there a hole? There's a hole in my sweater. Okay. Absolutely losing my mind that this is already my second take of this. Okay. Now I'm in the right space. I've got a monitor here so I can see if my camera goes out of focus. I have turned off the notifications on my phone. I'm on do not disturb mode so it's not gonna light up and distract the shit out of me. I've turned off my heater so I can stop sweating my balls off. We're doing great. We're doing great. What an intro. What a way to get started. I don't know how to start YouTube videos ever. This is why streaming is better for me than YouTube, because I clearly do better with like a stream of consciousness, just word vomit. And that's a little slightly less acceptable in edited video format. Great while you're live, but I'm gonna look back at this in a couple hours when I transfer the footage and try to edit this down, and I'm gonna be upset with present me right now because I have to edit around this. See, now I am upset, but it has less to do with the fact that I have to edit through my stream of consciousness and word vomit, and a lot more to do with the fact that my lipstick is smudged. And I'm only saying this because I know you know, and I need you to know that I know, and I know you know, and there's nothing either of us can do about it. What's done is done. It's not going to get fixed the entire video. I want to die. Anyway, a much better way to start. Okay, a much better way to start is I read a lot of books in 2021. Like a lot. I read quite a few books. I read 125 books in 2021, which is saying a lot because pre-2020, I don't think I'd read a single book in like 4 or 5 years, which is super depressing. But then lockdowns hit, and we all kind of regressed to former versions of ourselves and old hobbies that we'd kind of gotten rid of, and the one that I regressed to was reading and escapist fiction. And now here we are, and I've read 125 books in the last year. So that, of course, brings us to the point of this video, which, if you've seen the title, you're aware of why you're here. So why did I take so long to get to this part? These are going to be my top 5 best books out of 125 that I read all year. These are the cream of the crop. These are the absolute best of the best, the gold standard of what I read in 2021. And I will say there is a top tier #1 book. And if you follow me literally anywhere else, you already know what it is. I'm saving it for last because you all know what it is. But other than that, I have a solid top 5. They're not in any particular order. I don't have them in like a 5, 4, 3, 2 order. Just an easy top 5 that I can kind of meld into there. And then I have a series of honorable mentions. I actually have 10 books this year that I rated 5 stars, so I'll talk about the other ones in there, and then some 4.5s that were real close but didn't quite make it in. So that's what we're here for today. And before I start, because this will become apparent, I'm sure, throughout this video, I had a plan. I had an idea. Last night, laying in bed, thinking about the video that I wanted to make today, I was like, I'm gonna wake up early, I'm gonna open a Google Doc, and I'm gonna write out what I want to say about these books. And that way, when it comes time to film, it'll go super easy, and I'll just pull up these notes and know what I want to say. Guess what I didn't do? Why? Why did I not do it? Why? There's literally no reason. I don't have an answer for you. I had the idea. It was a good idea. I simply didn't do the idea. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to hold up a book and just say what comes to me. Is that a good idea? No. We're going to see where it goes. So we're winging it. We're just going to see what happens. Anyway, shall we get started? All right. Take 4. Take 4. Oh my God. Okay. This is the one. This is the one. We got this. Okay. Remember how I said I was winging it? Bad idea. Should have written notes. Whatever. Here we go. So the first book that I'm going to talk about, again in no particular order, is going to be Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I read this book in June. I was lucky enough to read an arc of this one, and I have not shut up about it since. That's kind of going to be a through line through a lot of these, is that all of these that I'm talking about, if you follow me anywhere else, you've heard me talk about these at length, because I will not shut the fuck up about them. This book is phenomenal. This book was so good. This is easily one of the best books I've read all year. That's an obvious thing. I'm here to talk about my top 5 books. What am I saying? Anyway, Little Thieves by Margaret Owen is a young adult fantasy. It's a retelling of the Goose Girl fairy tale, which was not one I was familiar with, so that was a lot of fun. I really like retellings, but it's nice to have something that's not retold over and over and over again. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good, like, Sleeping Beauty retelling. Speaking of this one right here, I have not read this yet. I'm gonna read that this month. I love a good retelling of a story that I know and love, but it's nice to see something that you don't see a lot, so that was nice. Basically, Vanya, our main character, is a maid to a princess who has a set of pearls that basically change her appearance. Vanya steals the pearls and takes over the princess's life and decides, these are mine now. This is mine now. I'm done being your servant. And then she becomes a thief. And she's basically pulling off one last heist. It's always the last job. She's pulling off her one last job before she can retire. And it goes horribly wrong. She is cursed by another god to slowly turn into jewels and eventually die unless she can break the curse. And thus begins the adventure. This is an absolutely phenomenal time. I had so much fun with this book. It's rare for me to, like, physically laugh out loud when I'm reading. This book is hilarious. I laughed constantly. Margaret Owen's writing is so funny. Just the way that she writes, not only dialogue, but, like, the character descriptions for Conrad got me every fucking time. I was waiting for this character to be in every scene just so I could hear the way that he was going to be described. Whether it was, oh my god, what was my favorite one? A set of billiard cues that had unionized to solve crimes, I believe. I might be mixing two there. But that, like, it was just, her writing is very, very funny. I had a really good time with it. And then on top of that, it also made me cry. Like, I literally ran the gamut of emotions. Everything you could feel, I felt. I cried, I laughed, I got angry, I got stressed. It was just a really, really good time. So it's young adult fantasy, and you've got gods and magic and sort of eldritch monster beings. And it's just, I had a really great time with it. It's kind of hard for me sometimes to talk about and rate books that I really, really love. I can rate and review a book that I hated like nobody's business. I can shred a book like absolutely no problem. I will tell you in detail every single specific reason why I don't like a book. But if I really love something and if I really, really like it and it's like a full 5 stars, very difficult. Very difficult. It's very much the Emma quote, if I loved you less, maybe I could talk about it more. Like, I just struggle to say why I connect so hard with something sometimes. It's very much that Marie Kondo idea of spark joy. Like, the thing that separates a 4.5 from a 5 for me is that spark. Whatever it is, this has got it. And it's got a lot of it, and it just is so good. The writing is good, the pacing is good, the story is good. The characters, this is one of my favorite ensembles, one of my favorite casts of characters that I read about all year. There was not a single part of this that I didn't like. There was not a single part of this where I would have tweaked something, or I'm like, oh, I wish this had happened instead, or I wish, you know, maybe this had happened first, or this hadn't happened at all. Not one thing that I would change. This is a phenomenal read. It, as far as I knew, was a standalone, and she was very adamant that it was a standalone, up to the point I watched like a live author chat with her, and she got a specific question, you know, is this going to be a series? And she was like, no, it's standalone. And the next day, she was like, I'm allowed to announce this, so there's going to be another one. So the way she described it, I think, is that there is going to be a series, but they can be read as standalones. So the next one will include the same characters. It's got Vanya. It's got other characters from here that I won't say. But apparently they can all be read standalone. This does work as its own book. You're not left on a cliffhanger waiting for something to happen next. So 5 out of 5, absolutely phenomenal read. Do recommend with everything in me. Oh my god, did I talk about? So the other thing that I really love about this, there are pictures. It has pictures. It is absolutely criminal that only children's books get pictures. It's not fair. It's not fair. And you know what? Somebody's got to say it, and I'm going to say it. Adults like pictures too, okay? Especially because I can't visualize. It's fucking blank. Absolutely blank slate up here. I can't visualize anything. So having pictures in a book is very helpful. so I know what things look like. It's very nice. I don't need them, but I like them. Oh, there's a book plate in here. Yeah, so there's pictures in here for each of the separate parts of the book. There are 7 in total. I should have got them out for this. Maybe I'll put like a B-roll thing in. I actually have a set of the 7 illustrations that are in this. They're all in color. In the book, they're in black and white. They go in a very specific order. I just think it adds a lot to the story to have them in there. I read an ebook of this, so I didn't get them the first time around, but as a physical copy, they will be very fun on a reread. Yeah, this is just a really, really good time. Please do yourself a favor. Get this book. Read this book. Have a great time with it. It's just... really like it. Okay. Next up, all of these. I was going to say I got this one for my mom for Christmas. I got all of these for my mom for Christmas, with the exception of my top one, because she already has it. Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. Oh my god. Okay, so it's not on this one because I have the UK version. I have the Illumicrate version of this. The American version has like the little blurb on the cover that just says, I think the quote is, "A primal scream of a book." And I can't say it any better than that. I really can't say it any better than that. This is a primal scream of a book. This is the most aggressively feminist thing. I love it so much. Like, the way that I am ready to just fight everyone and everything in the entire world while I was reading this book. When I tell you I got to the end of this and I physically had to stand up and pace my house because I had all this nervous energy in me and I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, I don't know what to do now. Like, what am I supposed to do now? I didn't tell you what the book is. This is Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. So Iron Widow is a sci-fi reimagining of China's only female empress. Basically, so it's very anime-esque. I don't watch anime. I'm not an anime fan, but that's a very easy way to explain it. It's very anime-esque. It's got bits of Gundam and Darling in the Franxx, and I'm out. That was it. That's all I had. That's all I had. It's giant mechas. It's giant mechas piloted by 2 companions, Pacific Rim. It's basically Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale meets a bunch of anime. That's what you're gonna get in this. And it is absolutely phenomenal. I can't even talk about everything I love about this book because this is one of those that it is so perfect if you go in blind. Like, just go in not really knowing what it's about. Don't read the blurb. Just see what happens. And that makes it really hard to review something or to talk about a book because I don't want to tell you anything. I just want you to get it. Just get the book. I don't want to tell you about it. All I need you to know is that it's good and you should get it. It is just... I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. This is why it's hard for me because I want you to read the book. But I don't want to tell you about the book. I just want you to trust me and read it. I will tell you it is a young adult sci-fi Pacific Rim giant mecha battles kind of a story with a heaping helping of feminism and morally gray characters. Morally gray is kind of putting it nicely. We'll say that. This is fun in a very different way than Little Thieves was fun. This, I was ready to fight somebody. Like, at any point, if you had, like, interrupted me in reading, I was ready to go. I was ready to throw hands fucking on sight. This just made me feel everything. Like, at no point did I really think I knew what was coming next. And, again, this is frustrating to talk about because I can't actually say it. It has what I think is actually my favorite sci-fi trope, and I can't say it because it's a huge fucking spoiler. Oh my god, what am I doing? What am I doing? Truly, what is the point of this? What am I doing? I can't even tell you anything about it except get the book. Like, literally all I can tell you is get the book. It is so good. It's the first in a series. I think, I want to say trilogy, but I could also just be pulling that out of my ass. Just do yourself a favor and read it. This is so good. I would go in blind. I think that's really the best way to experience this and just let it happen to you. Absolutely phenomenal time. Can't wait to read this one again. My mom is about halfway through it right now, and some of my friends just finished reading it, and I just want everyone in the world to read this. Please read this book. All right. That was an absolute mess. That was an absolute mess, but maybe it convinced somebody to read this book. Please do. All right, number 3. Number 3, this is a workout, is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. She's thick. She is a thick book. And when I tell you, I have been looking at this book for almost a year, probably over a year at this point, from the time that I first saw it and was interested in it to the time I actually got it and read it, all because this was intimidating. And if I can get one thing across, it's don't be intimidated by this. Do yourself a favor and read this book. So The Priory of the Orange Tree is an epic high fantasy sprawling tale with a huge cast of characters. It's like, what if Game of Thrones didn't hate women? You know? Yeah, but better. It's got everything. It's literally has everything you could possibly want. I remember reading this and thinking as I was going through it, this is what high fantasy should be. This is the pinnacle of what high fantasy is supposed to be. This is perfect. And it was so refreshing on so many levels to see an epic fantasy that was written by a woman, for women, about women, in a genre that is dominated by men writing misogyny and playing it off with the idea of historical accuracy because it's medieval or whatever the fuck they want to say. I will say that I read this almost directly after reading Empire of the Vampire, which, no. We're not soiling this experience by talking about that. But all that to say that I had gone from reading something incredibly misogynist, absolutely the most misogynist thing I've ever read in my life, to just a few books later reading this. And it really was, that was kind of the kickoff for why we read this. I read this with a couple of my friends, and we'd all read Empire of the Vampire. And after that, we were like, we just read 700 pages of the most misogynist thing I've ever seen in my life. We truly owe it to ourselves to read about the lesbians and the dragons. It really is just what we need at this point. And it was. It was healing, and it was just phenomenal. This was so good. And again, this is another one of those that, like, I don't want to give too much about it because I like to go into books blind. I understand not everybody does. A lot of people, you know, you don't want to waste your money on a book that you might not like. I like to go in blind, and I think that it kind of gives... It's a better experience in some ways, because you're not expecting things that happen. And obviously, to a certain point, like, a synopsis only covers so much, but there are things where I will read a book and be absolutely shocked by something, and then I look back later after I finish and I read the synopsis, and I'm like, it's right there. That would have ruined it. Like, that would have gone completely, I would have already known that was coming. And in some ways, I understand it helps to sell. It helps to sell a book to know that something is coming, or that a change is going to take place, or that the beginning isn't quite like the middle, etc., etc. All that to say, just trust my recommendation and read this book. Everything about this. The characters, the cast of characters is phenomenal. Even the ones that you don't like, you still like because you appreciate that they're like a good character. And the locations. So I mentioned earlier that I can't visualize anything, and I think I put in my review for this book, this is as close as I think I will ever get to being able to visualize something, because the way that Samantha Shannon describes everything, but especially the locales. There are different places in this book. There are different countries. There are different cultures. There are different cities. And they all feel wildly different and still cohesive of existing within the same world. And, like, it was just... I felt like all of them were fully fleshed out. And the politics! I was so invested in the politics of this world. I was in it. I was there with them. I was waiting to see what was gonna happen, what alliances are gonna work out, what isn't gonna work out. Like, I was right in the trenches with them on the political side of this. The romance plot line is phenomenal. It's so, so good. And it doesn't take up a huge portion of the book, but it is Oh, it's perfect. I just think everything in this book is really, really well balanced. That was rude. So my camera only records up to like 30 minutes and then it stops. And I was in the middle of it. I was so... What was I saying? Truly, what was I saying? I was talking about the politics and the romance plotline and the balance. Okay, so the balance of this book. Everything was very well balanced between, you have the magic and the dragons, you have the traveling, you have the political side of it, the romance side of it. You have, I believe, 5 different point of view characters, and all of them. So one of the things that I think is really hard to balance with having multiple points of view is knowing when to switch back and forth. And I had that problem a couple times with 2 different books that stand out. One of them was the Atlas 6. There's a video on my page already. One of them was the Atlas 6, and one of them was Empire the Vampire. And so Empire the Vampire is one point of view, but it's different timelines. And it was the idea of when to switch back and forth. And I struggled a lot with both of those books because I didn't like the way that the author chose to switch back and forth and when they chose to switch back and forth. This did a phenomenal job. Samantha Shannon balances having her different points of view incredibly well, to the point where there's a character that was my least favorite to read about, which is still like better than a lot of other characters. Like the worst thing about this book is still better than the best things about other books. Anyway, my least favorite character to read about, at one point I realized, I was like, we've gone 115 pages without hearing from this person. And that's great, because I think she knows they're not going to be the favorite. They're not the most necessary. She brings them in exactly when they need to be there, and then they leave. And then she brings them back in again when they need to be there. And the way that she switches back and forth, and it's just very good. I think she's an absolute master at balancing the different points of view, at balancing the different locations and the different storylines. And then, oh my God, the serotonin that it releases in my brain when you have a big book like this with different points of view and different storylines, and then they all start to come together. Oh my God, that feeling is unmatched. Absolutely unmatched. Fucking cocaine. It is so... It does something to me. It really does. That feeling is... There's no other like it. So, please read this book. Please, please, please do yourself a favor and read this book. We're actually reading this for book club for January. And I made sure, I told book club, because book club votes on the books, I told them, I was like, I need you to know this is an 800-page book. Don't vote for this if you're not going to read an 800-page book. It's okay. And they wanted to read it because I've not stopped talking about it since I read it in early December. So if this video goes up this week, like I think it will, the first week of January, and you would like to join us, find me on Discord. The link's in the bio. You can join our book club to read this with us. It's just so good. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It is the best high fantasy book I think I have ever read. I really can't recommend it enough. So this one is on its own a standalone. However, she is writing other Priory books. And I think once you read it, because I want to say she said that there would be 3. And I think once you read it, you kind of get an idea of what the other 2 are probably about. They are, I believe, prequels, so this still reads as a standalone on its own, and it's just... If you're intimidated by the size of it, just think of it as being 2 books. It's 2 books. It's 2 400-page books. And you can do that. You can read a fantasy duology, like, you do that all the time, right? You can do this. It's so good, and then once you start, you just don't want to stop. It's phenomenal. And the last thing I'll say is that the Samantha Shannon actually has a playlist on Spotify that she put up for this book. And it's all, like, scores and hymns and, like, epic traveling music and battle music and, like, not lyrical music is what I mean to say. And the experience of reading this book while listening to that playlist, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. There was a couple times where not only did the vibe of the song match the scene I was in perfectly, but the buildup matched with the buildup of the scene, and then like the climax of the song hit at the same time. Oh my God! It was like an out-of-body experience. It was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced in my life. I don't know how I'll go back to reading fantasy without like an accompanying score. It was incredible. So I do recommend listening to the score while you do this. I generally can't listen to music while I read, especially anything with lyrics. It's very difficult. I can't focus on, like, I just can't do it. But this was incredible. Please do it. Just give it a shot. Can't say enough good things about this. It's so good. It's so good. All right, next book. I've been talking for too long. This was supposed to be like a pretty short video, but when has that ever worked out? All right. So one of my goals for 2021 was to read more sci-fi. I have always loved sci-fi movies, sci-fi TV shows, but I don't read a ton of sci-fi books, and that doesn't really make sense to me. It wasn't anything that, like, I avoided them. I just didn't go out of my way to find them. I generally stuck with fantasy, and I was like, I'm gonna branch out this year. And I did a little bit. I would say before this morning, because this morning I looked at all the data from my reading from the tracker that I made, and I was like, I read a good amount of sci-fi. Like, I could read more, but I read a good amount. And then I saw, like, the little itty-bitty bar next to my fantasy bar, and I was like, I didn't read as much as I thought. That was off top. Oh, there goes my iPad. Why did my voice do that? Hang on. Oh, God. I don't actually know if that moved my camera. I don't know what just happened there. I'm using my iPad as my monitor. Motherfucker. All right, that was super dramatic. I don't know what I was saying. I don't know where I left off. I wanted to read more sci-fi. Oh, okay. So I wanted to read more sci-fi. I didn't read as much as I thought I did, or at least, like, relative to everything else I read. But it is nice. 2 sci-fi books made it into my top 5 of the year. We had Iron Widow, and then the other one, which is also the only one in my top 5 by a man, is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was, I can't keep saying this about every book, but this was so much fun. It was really fun. I had a phenomenal time with this. I have never read anything by Andy Weir. I really, really like The Martian, the movie. I haven't read the book. I just finally picked it up at Barnes & Noble on their, like, hardcover half price. I've never seen that book in hardcover at that Barnes & Noble. They finally had it. I digress. Anyway, so I really like the movie, but I haven't read the book. And then this one came out. Sounded interesting. I wanted to read more sci-fi, so I was like, bet, we'll go. So, Project Hail Mary, what I knew going in was that a man wakes up on a space station, or like a spacecraft, with a dead crew, no idea who he is or why he's there. And that's it. And that's all I'm going to tell you. You don't want to know anything else about it. Just read this book. Because I really thought that it was going to be, like, I had thoughts in my head about what I thought this book was going to be, and it was not those things in the absolute best possible way. Like, this just kept taking turns that I didn't expect, and if you've read this book, you know the main turn that it takes that I didn't see coming, and it was just really, really good. It was very well done. I think it can be a little difficult sometimes to have a story about a single person, because that's kind of my worry going into it. I was like, it's one dude alone, and not that you can't do that, and there's a lot of good books that do that, but I like a good cast of characters. You know, I like good interaction, I like good dialogue, but this balances really well with him being alone, being on the space station, not knowing who he is. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything about what it shows. It does it all very well. And it's incredibly accessible sci-fi. I could not, for the life of me, figure out the word accessible when I was talking about this book. I was like, it's got a lot of science in it, and it's got a lot of math, and it's got a lot of big, you know, space travel ideas, but you feel smart because you feel like you're understanding it, and I could not for the fucking life of me. It's accessible. The word is accessible. It's got a lot of, like, big scientific ideas that are talked about in a way that you understand. And I like that because it makes me feel smart. I'm like, look at me. I get it. I understand. NASA, please hire me. You're welcome. But, like, it's a nice feeling, you know, to not be super confused. It's got technical sci-fi aspects, but it's very accessible. So this was really good. Again, there's a lot that I don't want to say about it because I would really recommend just going in blind and just experiencing this book. It was such a great time. Kind of the same with all these. I could not put these books down. It really fits in that mold of, there was just something about it where it was a really good book, and then it clicked, something sparked, and it hit that 5 stars. It hit that 5-star note in my head, and it was just perfection. I can't recommend this book enough. I feel like at this point, like, we've gone through 4 of these. I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, because they really, like, they are my top 5. I cannot recommend these books enough. I had a great time with all of them. They're really fun, even when they're very emotional, and it's just, like, they're all really good. Please read them. Please read these books. And if you like them, talk to me about it. And if you don't like them, I don't want to fucking hear it. Because they're perfect. You're gonna like it. Just read the book. Alright, are we ready? Are we ready? You know it's coming. You know what the top book, you know what the best book that I read all year was. What am I at? I'm at 14 minutes. My camera's gonna die. That's not good. I've got a flashing red battery indicator. That is not good. Oh, we're gonna run out of time. I'm gonna have to, like, stop in the middle of this and charge my battery. I only have one. I don't know where the other one went. What was I saying? Oh my god. Okay, here we go. Alright, so again, if you follow me literally anywhere else, you will know what my top book of the year was. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I read this. This was the first book. This was the first book that I read in 2021. And I closed that last page and I pried my crusty eyelids open because they were caked in mascara because I'd been bawling my eyes out and I looked a mess. And I knew. I was like, nothing is going to top this. I will read a bunch of books this year, and I absolutely know this will be the best. By the end of the year, it's impossible. Like, nothing's going to touch it. And things got close. All 4 of these books, they got close, but nothing hit me like Addie hit me. I don't even know what to say. I physically don't know what to say. First of all, I'm wearing an Addie sweater. This is the bookstore that Henry works at. That's why I'm wearing this sweater. Even though it's so hot in here, I had to turn my heater off. I don't even know. I haven't really taken the time to, like, just sit down and talk about why I like this book so much. Like, individually, I kind of have conversations about it. But, like, sitting here in front of a camera and having to talk about why this is my best book of the year, I don't know what to say other than that it just, there's a few things. So first of all, V. Schwab is officially my favorite writer. In 2020, I read the Shades of Magic series, and then I picked up Addie, but I hadn't read it. And then this year I read Addie, Vicious and Vengeful, and her Cassidy Blake series, the middle grade trilogy, and hands down, she's my favorite writer. She fucking does not miss, ever. All of her books are good. So her writing style is very lyrical. It's very beautiful. Like, just the way that she uses words. Just the words that she puts on the page. And it's such a weird thing to say because, like, obviously, like, that's writing. But, like, there's just something about the style and the way that she writes that hits me so hard. And then the story in this is just phenomenal. So Addie LaRue is a young woman in 18th century France, and she doesn't want the life that's been put out for her. She doesn't want to marry the person they tell her to marry. She doesn't want to pop out a couple of kids, live in her same village, never see the world, and just live this very small life. And so on the day that she's supposed to get married to this person, she runs off, she finds herself in the woods, and she makes a bad deal with the wrong god, and she ends up essentially cursed. She is given immortality, she's given more time, but nobody will ever remember her. You see her, you know her, she introduces herself, you look away, you look back, you don't know who that is. As soon as she is out of somebody's eye line, they don't remember who she is. So she can leave, at this point, you know, as far as she knows, she can leave no mark on the world. Her family forgets her, her village forgets her. She can't really own anything. She can't do anything. She has to just figure out how to live a life forever with no one ever remembering her. And so the actual story itself is beautiful. The characters are amazing. Addie is a wonderful, wonderful, like, point of view character. And one of the things that I had a lot of fun with in this book was that kind of seems like something that you can get around. Like, the idea that nobody can remember you, so, you know, there's this loophole, or there's that loophole. And I kept finding loopholes, and I kept finding things where I was like, okay, well, she could do this, or this could happen. And every time, it was so perfectly timed, like, with my own thought process, that almost every single time that I found a loophole, it was in the writing that it was closed. Like, she just would say things sometimes. She's like, oh, well, I tried this 50 years ago. Didn't work. Or I did this 20 years ago and nothing happened. And I tried this and I tried that. And every time I would find a loophole, she would close it in the writing, to the point where by the end of it, I couldn't find a loophole. Like, it's very easy. I feel like I spend a lot of time not really looking for loopholes, but it's just the way that my mind works. When I'm reading, I will see where the plot could go. I was like, okay, well, here's your shortcut. Here's your answer. Here's this. Like, if you had just done this, it would have been easier. If you had just done that. And she doesn't leave me any of those. And that is difficult to do because my brain is just wired to do that all the time. So that was amazing. And then there's a character in this that this is a 5-star and a perfect read for me, partly because it feels so personal. Okay, I don't know where that left off, but I had to stop because I was going to cry. So we're going to go back a little bit. What was I saying? Okay. So one of the reasons that this is such a big top tier 5-star read for me is one of the characters, Henry, is just very, very personal. So the whole book feels very personal to me. It feels very relatable in a lot of ways. But Henry in particular is, I don't even know, I've never read or seen a portrayal of depression that feels like it came out of my brain. And Henry feels like he came out of my brain. And it is wild. It was like, I felt so seen. I felt so understood, just knowing that, like, somebody had this character in their head. Somebody knew these things, these thoughts that people have, these thoughts that other people have. And, like, that was a very visceral thing for me to see that. So there are a lot of reasons that this is so, like, high on my list. And one of them is that it just feels like it was written for me in a lot of ways. Like, I latched onto this book. I connected with it very, very hard. And it felt perfect. There's not one thing about this that I would change. There's not one single bit of this. Even the parts that hurt me, even the parts that made me cry so hard that there is physical water damage in this book and, like, teardrops that I can see on the pages. I cried so much. I cried so much in this book, and it was just perfection. It was so good. And I fucking knew. I closed the book and I was like, nothing is going to touch this. Like, everything can try. All these other books that I'm going to read can try. I'm going to read some other good shit this year, but nothing will hit me the way that this hit me. And so Addie is a top tier book. Addie is one of the best books I've ever read in my life because, yes, the writing and the story and the plot and the intricacies of the gift/curse, depending on how you want to look at it. But it also just felt very real. It felt very real. It felt very relatable. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I love her writing. I love her plotting. I love everything she does. It's just incredible. And I cannot wait to read more from her. I'm at 9 books by her, I think now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is my V. Schwab shelf right here, and then here's my Addie shelf with my 9 different copies of this book that I have, because I have 2 of the American edition, 1 that's signed and 1 that's signed and personalized. I have the UK edition. I have Forbidden Planet edition, Illumicrate, Owl Crate, the American special edition, the UK special edition, the Dutch language version. Is that all of them? At this point, I'm done. I'm done collecting Addies at this point. I'm going to get one more. I'm going to get a paperback because the next time that I read this, I want to take notes and, like, highlight and annotate and tab it. And so I'll get a paperback for that. But yeah, I hardcore latched onto this book. I really, really did. And I think everybody should read it. I think it's a phenomenal time. And if you don't like it, I don't ever want to hear it. I don't ever want to hear it. If you read this book and you don't like it, I don't fucking want to hear it. I truly don't. I won't do it. I won't look at bad reviews for this book. This is my book. This is my baby. Nobody can say anything about it. I will physically fight somebody. This is actually, for October, my book club thought about, like, oh, we should nominate Addie. It's the 1-year anniversary of the book. And I was like, no. I do not have it in me to host a book club and have to read possibly negative review. Like, if anybody didn't like this, we'd have a problem. It would be a problem. So I physically banned this book from my book club. I was like, you can read it on your own. I am not moderating discussions about this book when there's a possibility that somebody could not like it. Not that I think anybody would. I think they'd probably 5 stars, but somebody would do it just to mess with me. Not allowed. Not allowed. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Those are my top 5 books of the year. Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao, Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. That was an easy top 5. Like, when I was picking out my top 1, easy peasy. When I thought about doing a top 3, I didn't know which of the other 2. It was basically, I didn't know what the other 2 were going to be. Top 5 was easy for me. However, I did have 5 other books that I gave 5 stars this year, and we're going to run through those super quick.